concept of death as a sacred transition and dive deep into the ancient wisdom of death and grief. I will also share my personal journey through grief and hope that I can offer some guidance and support to those that have emailed me and are currently journeying through the grief process right now. So I was 14 years old when I lost my father, and in that moment my world changed forever. No one truly spoke to me about death or what it meant that he was gone. It was left to me, a child, to make sense of it with little to no knowledge. In my young years, I wandered in denial, as though we had simply stepped away and he would return at any moment. But absence has a way of carving itself into the soul, a silent echo that follows through the years. I first understood the way of my loss in my own reflections on the day I turned 18 years old, as I wrote in my diary, trying to grasp the enormity of what happened. Yet, even then, the understanding was distant, like the shape of the moon behind a veil of clouds. It was not until I was 25 years old, when I was studying the mysteries of death and dying at university, that the floodgates truly opened. Every assignment, every reflection became an unbearable journey through grief, as if my father's absence was written in every word. I wasn't sure if I could continue. How does one analyze death when still cradling the sorrow of it? But I was blessed with a tutor who became my anchor, guiding me through the storm, encouraging me to face the pain rather than to turn away from it. Even now, grief moves through me like the tide upon the shore, waves of remembrance rising and falling, the warmth of his smile, the scent of his presence, the meaning he carried in my life. And so I have learned that grief is not something to be conquered or forgotten. It is a river that runs through us, changing its course but never drying. We carry our loved ones in the marrow of our bones, in the stories that we tell, in the love we continue to give. In honoring them, we honor life itself. To grieve is to love, and to love is to embrace the certainty of change. The only thing promised in this life is transformation, life, death, and rebirth in an endless cycle. And so we must learn to walk with grief, not as a shadow, but as a sacred companion that teaches us the depth of our own hearts. For as long as I can remember, I have felt deeply called to explore the sacred journey of death and grief. In modern society, death remains an unspoken mystery, feared and hidden away, leaving many to suffer alone in their grief. Yet, through my studies, personal experiences, and working with those at the end of their lives, I have come to see death not as an end, but as a transformation, an honored return home. Ancient traditions understood this, honoring death as a natural passage, a sacred cycle interwoven with life itself. The wisdom of the past reminds us that embracing death can bring profound healing and a deeper appreciation for the present moment. In the earliest human societies, death was deeply connected to nature and the cycles of life. Indigenous cultures performed elaborate burial rituals, ensuring the deceased were guided safely into the afterlife. Their connection to the earth taught them that death was merely a return to the womb of existence, much like the setting sun promises a new dawn. In the sacred teachings of ancient Egypt, this is referred to as the eternal cycle. Death was not seen as a finality but as a transition into the Duat, the realm of the afterlife. The Ka, which is the vital essence, the Ba, the spiritual self, and the Ak, the immortal soul, were central to their understanding of existence beyond the physical form. The journey through the underworld was a test where one's heart was weighed against the feather of Ma'at, the goddess of truth. If the heart was light, the soul entered the blessed afterlife. If not, it was consumed by Amet, the devourer of souls. This belief instilled a deep reverence for life and the need to cultivate truth and balance in preparation for the next stage of existence. Closely mirroring the weighing of the heart, we find the Zoroastrian teachings that speak of death as a sacred passage where the soul journeys across the Chinvat bridge. Those who have lived a righteous life walk easily across the house of song, while those who lived in darkness must confront the consequences of their actions. This tradition emphasizes that how one lives shapes their experience in the afterlife, reinforcing the importance of virtue, of wisdom and righteousness. These scenes, also known for their deep spiritual discipline, saw death as a moment of liberation where the soul reunites with the divine. Their teachings reflected a belief in the immortality of the soul and the process of purification it undergoes after leaving the body. Similarly, Theosophical thought describes death as a shedding of the physical shell, allowing the soul to journey through different planes of existence before reincarnating or merging with the divine source. Both perspectives teaches that life is a school, temporary phase of learning before we continue our spiritual evolution. Death is a great threshold, a passage through which the soul embarks on a journey of review and transformation. Every thought, deed, and intention we have woven into the fabric of our lives becomes part of this unfolding process. In this transition, the essence of who we are is reflected back to us, urging us to cultivate awareness, love, and moral strength as these qualities shape the path beyond the physical form. Yet in modern times, the natural process of grief is often dismissed or rushed. Unlike the past, where death was honored with deep ritual and reverence, today's world struggles to acknowledge the profound pain of loss. Grief is frequently suppressed, with individuals expected to move on rather than fully process their emotions. This repression creates unresolved trauma, which not only weighs on the heart but also disrupts the body's balance, affecting emotional well-being and even physical health. When we embrace grief as a sacred journey rather than a burden, we allow healing to unfold and life to be lived with greater depth and presence. The weight of grief is not just an emotional burden, it manifests within the body, particularly through the nervous and endocrine systems. The stress of loss activates the sympathetic nervous system, flooding the body with cortisol, disrupting sleep and weakening immune function. The delicate balance of hormones overseen by the endocrine system is thrown into disarray, often leading to fatigue, depression, and a diminished sense of vitality. Understanding these physiological responses allow us to approach grief with greater compassion and holistic care, honoring it as a process that must be tended to and not ignored. In today's world, death is often seen as an enemy, something to be avoided, to be denied or silenced. Yet, when we turn to wisdom, long known but now forgotten, we find that death was once honored as a sacred return, a transformation rather than an end. It is written, "For dust you are, and to dust you shall return." Acknowledging death is not a surrender to despair, but an act of reverence of life itself. By speaking of it openly, we break the silence that isolates those who grieve, and doing so, we support one another in the journey of transition and remembrance. Grief is not a burden to be silenced, but a story to be told, a song to be sung. If you feel called to honor your grief in a sacred way, I invite you to join the waiting list for the grief ceremonies that I will start hosting in April. Whether you're facing the loss of a loved one or preparing for your own transition, know that this journey is one of love and transformation, not loss. We are all made of dust and shall return to it. But in this return, there is only transformation. It is my heartfelt mission to create a space where grief is honored, supported, and integrated. These ceremonies will offer a sacred space to process, to release, and embrace grief with love and wisdom. Secure your place now and walk this path with grace and support. And so, beloved one, I would like to remind you that you are not alone in this journey. And I will leave now with a poem that I've wrote a while ago, and it keeps coming for me, and every time I go over it, it ends up being added on to. So here we go. Open your heart to receive. Cry, child, cry. Let the waters flow, for the river knows where the sorrow must go. Sing, child, sing. Let the echoes rise, for love does not perish, it only hides. The hands that held you, the voice so near, are woven in time, still whispering here. Grief is a thread in the grand design, a bridge between worlds, both yours and mine. So walk with the wind, carry the flame, speak of their names without fear, without shame, for the veil is thin and love remains in the rustling leaves, in the falling rain. Cry, child, cry, let the waters flow, for the river knows where the sorrow must go. And I hope you enjoy that.